Welcome to Mazungumzo, African Scholarly Conversations, a podcast that highlights the perspectives of various stakeholders in academia and research fields across Africa through open dialogue or Mazungumzo on scholarly communication in Africa.
Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2024 and welcome to Mazungumzo, African Scholarly Conversations, where we are joined by an expansive list of African policymakers, science communication specialists, scholarly communication specialists, innovators, and tertiary institutional leads who contribute to this realm of science and scholarly communication. I'm your host, Joy Owango, the Executive Director of the Training Center in Communication, TCC Africa, a research capacity building trust based at the University of Nairobi, Kenya. Joining us today is a distinguished academic whose commitment to education and gender mainstreaming has left an indelible mark on the academic landscape in Tanzania and Africa. Professor Flora Fabian is the founding Vice Chancellor of Mwanza University in Tanzania and a professor in anatomy and biomedical sciences. She has previously held positions at Muhimbili University of Health and Applied Sciences and the University of Dodoma. She has a special interest in gender mainstreaming and gender-responsive pedagogy. On this note, Professor Fabian has collaborated closely with INASP on initiatives such as strengthening research and knowledge systems and transforming employability for social change in East Africa, healthcare. In these projects conducted during her leadership at Dodoma, she played a key role in delivering gender mainstreaming and training of trainer workshops. As a result, she is a co-author of the INASP Gender Mainstreaming in Higher Education Toolkit. Welcome, Professor Fabian. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Joy, and thank you very much for having me in this program, and Happy New Year.
Oh yes, Happy New Year to you. You've had quite a diverse portfolio in academia and leadership. Could you share a bit about your academic journey and the expectations that have shaped your passion for education and gender mainstreaming in academia, and most importantly, how it influenced your position as a vice chancellor at Mwanza University?
Thank you, Joy. I must say, well, before I go to my academic journey, it all started during my formative years, really, with my own father, who was very proud of me, considering those times, girls were considered an insignificant group in the society, and fathers would like to take their boys to school, but my father was a bit different. He encouraged me and he was proud of me, even telling the neighbors that his little girl is brilliant and is gonna go far in education. So this, I think, gave me confidence in a society where girls were not considered as an important group in the society. Going to my academic journey, it all started as an undergraduate student at the Muhimbili College then of the University of Dar es Salaam. And what inspired me really was the fact that in higher learning institutions, teaching is evidence-based, and of course, research was an interesting component for me. And when we were doing the undergraduate elective study research, I was really kind of inspired by my supervisor, although was not a woman. And I believed that there will be fairness, equity, and equality in the higher education community.
Right.
yeah. Then, completed my undergraduate, went to internship. And, during the internship, normally you go through various departments, and at one point you the emergency department. And really, that's when I felt so much frustrated. And I thought, instead of, working in a very frustrating environment all the time, I could go to academics, teach. Of course, I will support in producing more doctors who are going to support people and who are going to be, of course, innovative and hopefully solve the issues of technology then.
Right.
I hope you can relate with that.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So I therefore applied to be a tutorial assistant in the Department of Anatomy, which is one of the courses I really loved, especially embryology, which I teach to date. Of course, I also teach other programs in anatomy. But this one really intrigued me because you see how a human is developing prior to fertilization, and then you can explain a lot of these anomalies that babies may be born with. We see anomalies on the street, and I thought this is quite interesting. So this really pushed me into joining this department. So, but the training then in our setting, there wasn't enough technology to conduct advanced research, and also a scholarship for biomedical sciences were quite hard. And yes, and fortunately, one of the days I just went to the Ministry of Health trying to find out how can one get a scholarship. And this is how I was introduced to the Japanese embassy. I was told that if you go to the Japanese embassy, you may, yes, I could apply for the scholarships. So I was fortunate and I applied, and out of the 30 applicants, I was one of the 3 who were successful, and I went to Tokyo, and that's where I did my PhD.
So
on my
continue, please continue.
Yes. So Joy, I must say then that is how my academic journey started. But progression into my academic journey wasn't as straightforward. It wasn't. Really, I wouldn't say it was an easy journey. During the time, the institutional systems were quite masculine. There was no awareness on early career mentorship. There was minimal awareness of gender. And to say the least, there was open discrimination and lack of empathy to women. Remember, the time that we are going to postgraduate, it is also the same time that we are getting married, having children. So I think it was quite hard. And I must say somehow this hardened me, although at times I could be very emotional and go into the sanctuary of my room or my privacy in the office, cry it off.
Oh no.
And yeah, But then I promised myself that I will make sure to support and mentor early career women specifically as much as I could do, because I could see how I fought through and there was minimal support. So I would say mostly my journey has been from my own motivation and the inspiration to grow as an academic who can teach well, but most importantly, who can be a role model to the young women who want to excel in academia.
Okay. So now I'm just listening to you and I understand what you're going through, because it's what most women go through in academia. You know, there's balancing family with your career, and it can be a bit of a nightmare. And also sometimes at that point, there's really no gender mainstreaming within our universities. Right now, it is better. I mean, we could do better, but it is definitely better than before. And it is really that those challenges you faced in your career, to the point that even became a vice chancellor, that got you really interested in gender mainstreaming, which also led to the development of the INAS gender mainstreaming in higher education toolkit. So could you elaborate on the significance of gender mainstreaming in higher education and share specific practical strategies and tools from the toolkit that academic institutions can implement to promote gender equity and inclusivity? You can also share with us, despite the experiences that you went through, and how this toolkit could have helped if it existed then, and how it would actually support researchers today.
Thank you, Joy. First of all, let me say a few words about INASP. We know INASP is an international development organization based in the UK, but it has been working with universities and researchers in Global South for more than 30 years, and mainly on strengthening research, teaching, and knowledge production, and supporting the knowledge ecosystem. So for me, I started interacting with INASP really when I was at the University of Dodoma. And
continue.
Previously, when I was at Muhimbili University of Allied and Health Sciences, I had participated, and this is more than 20 years back, of course. I had participated in a training of trainers in gender mainstreaming.
Yes.
There was a program that was supported by the Carnegie Organization of Canada.
Right.
And this is how I was actually introduced to gender.
Right.
And yes, and I'm glad that this program, which was organized by the University of Dar es Salaam, it was one of the initiatives that put in place the gender unit at that university then. However, it has remained quite academic.
Right.
And also each higher education institution will progress differently at a different pace, but still there is notable gaps in academia. Specifically, of course, we know in STEM programs. This is a known fact. And we noted that this could have arisen from the lack of a standard tool for gender mainstreaming, which could be adapted by various universities, and specifically new public institutions and private institutions. most private institutions may not have gender units, may not have gender policies or frameworks. So this was the main driver for us to really think about developing this tool. And specifically, when I was at the University of Dodoma, there was a glaring gender gap in the institution. And for example, out of the 694 academics then at that particular time, only 175 were women.
Oh.
And yes, and so you can see it's only maybe a quarter of the total academics were women.
Right.
And most of them were in the lower academic ranks.
Mm.
And of course, it goes without saying, there was no woman in the top management. Of course, currently we may have a few women in top management.
Have more.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah, especially the deputies, the deputy vice
the
chancellor.
DVCs, there are quite a
Yes,
number.
the DVCs. Yes, we have some. But then there was none at that particular time.
Right.
And we also looked at the middle level managers, and we had like 25 middle level managers, and out of them only 5 were women.
Right.
And it goes without saying that without a suitable academic rank, you cannot become a higher learning institution manager, definitely.
That is true.
So, yes, but despite all these gaps, it's like business as usual.
Mm.
And this is how I consulted some of my colleagues who were at the middle level manager like myself on how could we raise awareness on gender and hopefully start gender mainstreaming.
Mm.
And therefore, this is how we planned our first workshop. And we called this workshop Getting Out of the Box.
Okay.
Yes. So out of that box, out of that Getting Out of the Box workshop, we then we got, of course, the support was from INASP because we had started working with INASP on research writing through the author aid program.
Yes.
Yes. And therefore, this is how we took off into considering gender mainstreaming. So we applied and we were able to get funding for the first workshop.
Okay.
And from that workshop, we developed a work plan then. What were we going to do out of that workshop?
Right.
And really, this is how we developed the toolkit. So the toolkit on gender mainstreaming, we take into consideration that gender mainstreaming is actually a strategy. And what will be the outcome then is an institutional, which is a gender sensitive institution as an outcome. And therefore, we will have an institution which is more gender sensitive, gender aware, and therefore have a gender equity and equality in the institution.
Right.
So the toolkit itself has the tools that will help any institution, be it a higher learning institution or a research institution, to be able to actually conduct workshops and, of course, support gender mainstreaming.
Right.
And how does it work? Normally, we introduce on the process itself, which I may say is like 4 stages. You start with defining the issues. And with defining the issues, the tools that support defining the issues is by conducting a qualitative or quantitative data, sex disaggregated data, which will give us the gaps. We are able to identify the gaps. And when we have these gaps now, we also know who are we going to bring on board in actually going into in-depth, so that so we also identify stakeholders. And in our case, we consider top management, of course, middle management, staff, and students.
Right.
After that stage, then we have the tools that support the planning. And so what do we mean by planning? In this case, we have to look at our resources. So what resources are in place? In terms of finance, in terms of those who are going to implement. And implementation in this case would involve, of course, training, will involve doing some more studies so that we can implement better. And therefore, it guides on the budgeting, it guides on how we are going to locate our resources. And then we go to the implementation. And with implementation, the tool actually gives stage by stage on conducting either one-day workshop or continuous workshops in gender, raising gender awareness.
Right.
And we start from maybe small groups, and then we make sure now the institution is gender aware. And the staff becomes gender sensitive and gender responsive. And as such, we are able now to prepare tools. And preparation of tools for gender mainstreaming. That means including revision of the frameworks that we have, revision of policies, and in case an institution does not have a gender policy, then involve the institution in preparing a gender policy.
Okay. All right.
And this will also include at the end to evaluate and recommend. But most importantly, Joy, I think without involving top management, especially where you have the whole of top management as only men.
Oh yeah, that becomes a bit of an issue. Yeah.
Yes, it is an issue. So you need lobbying to have a buying in, So with that, then you can revisit, you can replan, then you can retrain.
That's true.
And now, you can have a system in place that allows a transformed institution.
So with that said, what have been the key lessons that you've learned because you're getting into an ecosystem where before there were no women in leadership. You want more women in leadership. You're training more women to be in leadership, especially in the universities, but also engendering the entire education ecosystem. And where traditionally it has been male dominated. So what have been your key lessons in this entire process?
Joy, I must say, first of all, it has been a very fulfilling journey. As I mentioned earlier, initially we need a lot of lobbying with top management.
And there was no
But
pushback? There was no pushback at that point?
some pushback I expected, Joy.
Yeah.
But yes, but the good thing is we have to have, this process has to be evidence-based.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And therefore having rapid surveys locally.
Yeah.
And also having literature from global data is really very, very important. And through those evidence-based, then we build our case. And therefore buying in, can be easier. Another thing I would like to mention is when we are working with gender mainstreaming, transformations, and so forth, we as individuals undergo our own individual transformations. And this, with individual transformation, gives us the strength specifically to have transformation at institutional level. And once we have transformation at the institutional level, then the gender gap is reduced. For example, I may give an example. Following our process of gender mainstreaming, preparation of the gender policy, really there has been a big transformation, specifically in research and publication. Well, I must say I was lucky because I was a director then for research and publication. But, and yes, and I was lucky that we had the INASP support where we continued to train women.
Yes.
And there was a rapid increase. There was a rapid change in the volume of publication from women.
As first authors?
And sorry?
As first authors, publication from women as first authors as well?
Yes, as first authors, and some as second, third, or whatever co-authors.
Yeah.
But really, this changed because from the first year to the following year, already women came up with publications.
Good.
And especially those who were doing their PhD, they were able to produce publications from their dissertations and theses. So as such, and some of them, because of the raised awareness, we became more aware on balancing the time between academic responsibilities and home chores. And as such, women start prioritizing their academic activities, and even to the point of engaging helpers to support with the home chores. And as such, we kind of were able to balance more, and people were happy that they could produce publications. So I think for me, the lessons were great. Once we do the lobbying, once we raise the awareness, and once we target not only the management, but the women themselves, being aware that actually we can make it. So there has been a very positive change among women, and even promotions,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also instills confidence in them, and
Yes.
also it leads to inspiration for the early career researchers, especially the early career women researchers. When you see a vice chancellor who is a woman or a deputy vice chancellor who is a woman, you know there is something beyond just working on your research. You can also aim for those higher positions, especially when you're seeing them as part authors and they're also receiving grants. So that is quite an achievement. Now, with your collaboration with INAF, which has been quite extensive, you've been notable in the projects like strengthening research and knowledge systems, that is the CRKS, and also TESCARE, which is the transforming employability for social change in East Africa. Could you provide a brief overview on these projects and highlight the key aspects of your involvement, and what impacts have these initiatives had on the research and knowledge systems in the regions they targeted?
Oh, thank you, Joy. Let me start with the strengthening research. As I mentioned earlier, I was fortunate that I was the director of research and publications, consultants, and of course, international collaboration.
Yeah.
And this gave me an opportunity to work very closely with INASP.
Yes.
And during that time, I became part of the INASP Author Aid program, facilitating online research writing. And this allowed us to develop proposals.
Yes.
Which were some of them supported by INASP locally, like conducting research writing workshops for the early career researchers. And this really supported the early career researchers in developing fundable research proposals, producing manuscripts from their dissertations. But more importantly, I was able to encourage early career researchers in my institution to join the online author aid program, which was really a big support.
Yes.
And it was during this time that my collaboration with INASP grew, and we then continue to work together in gender issues, gender mainstreaming, and of course the toolkit, as we have discussed earlier. But gender mainstreaming activities grew, and it became possible to be sustained by the university itself. So therefore, budgets were involved. I mean, during the budgeting, we could put in place activities that are related, not only with research rate, but also with gender mainstreaming. And through the implementation of the strengthening knowledge and research ecosystem, and the gender activities then coincides with the announcement of the Sphere program in 2017. And therefore, INASP wanted to find out if I was interested in teaming up, and if I could form a team that will work together, and of course bring other institutions on board to develop the proposal for the TESEA project. And as you might be aware, Joy, the TESEA project was implemented by Eastern universities. And of course, it was mainly on teaching pedagogy, but also gender mainstreaming pedagogy, which is a teaching style where specific needs of both men and women learners are considered. Okay. So lecturers were trained, and students were trained, and adapting the transformative learning program or teaching style.
Yes.
And really, this program not only changed or improved our teaching style, but also this is when we developed a group of champions or training of trainers to train others across the institution, in the implementing institutions, but also outside the implementing institutions.
Okay.
Yes, for example, we had an opportunity to introduce gender mainstreaming and gender responsive pedagogy in another sphere project known as Pebble with West Africa. And therefore, we worked with INASP and ourselves to train the trainers who were implementing that program. And I must say, really, these two projects, TESEA and the strengthening research and knowledge ecosystem, has improved greatly the volume of publications amongst the implementers of these projects.
Right.
And yes, but also through webinars, through workshops, it has been impactful within and outside the region.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yes.
Fantastic. And, when you have more researchers improving not only their pedagogy skills, but also improving their research systems, it means that at the end of the day, they improve their research output, they improve their research visibility. And I believe it strongly connects into the gender mainstreaming, because you're also encouraging more women to be part of these programs and to be recipients of these programs, such that their work can be seen and they can also aspire to get into these leadership positions that the gender mainstreaming toolkit was designed to do, but also making leadership within higher education institutions a bit more discerning about the various factors that influence that hinder, not actually influence, that hinder women researchers from achieving their goals as leaders within their ecosystem. So this is quite good. And with all said and done, when you are going through this data scale project and the SRKS project, am I right to assume that you had also included aspects of the gender mainstreaming to just make sure that this is aligned with the conversations that you are having with the various researchers and partners? Do you feel, or did you observe that you had more women involved in that project? Because at the end of the day, when you're looking at improving research output, it's also encouraging more women to be part of this process so that they can be seen, their work can be seen, and they can also improve their research life cycle. So did you see an increase in women getting involved? Did you also include gender mainstreaming in this gender mainstreaming activities in these two major projects?
Sure, Joy. Actually, one of the reasons why our committee was funded was the gender mainstreaming and the gender responsive pedagogy components.
Yes.
It was a big attraction to the Sphere program. And of course, our teams had 50-50, or actually the women were slightly more than the men.
So it was intentional. Yes.
Yes, it was
Okay.
very, very intentional right from the beginning. And this
Yeah.
was really cool. And this is how we even got to support the Pebble West Africa project, which was also a project under Sphere.
Right.
So it was, I must say, it was a big success when considering gender mainstreaming and gender responsive pedagogy. Yes.
Okay. So with all this, there are elements of mentoring researchers, particularly early career researchers. What are your reflections on your commitment to the development of others, and what personal fulfillment do you find in mentoring, not only early career researchers in improving their research life cycle, but also influencing change by gender mainstreaming within higher education, and how has this entire process influenced your growth as an academic leader?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Joy. As I mentioned earlier, of course, my own experiences motivated me to start with. And I had promised myself, I'm going to be mentoring others.
Right.
And not only others, specifically early career women. And actually, this is the big passion for me.
Yeah.
To see young women excel and become top managers in higher learning institutions.
Absolutely.
Sure. However, number one, through mentoring, we grow as we find strength.
Very true.
We find strength that we can tap from those who we are mentoring.
Yes.
And this is a big inspiration. For example, I was not very good at qualitative research.
Right.
But I was mentoring and I was supervising a PhD student who is a woman. And she was really good in qualitative research. And this is how I actually learned to do qualitative research.
Right.
Yeah. But of course, as a mentor, we publish together. Of course, I'm not going to be the first author, but definitely my research volume will grow.
Of course.
And this is a big motivation to really mentor others and work together.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now, beyond academia, what are your personal aspirations or dreams?
Yes. Outside the academia, outside and inside the academia.
Okay, let's do that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, I would say I felt like staying away for all those years. I kind of lost some good contact, some deep connection with my children. But I appreciate that they do understand and they do support me. And definitely I was able to support them through. Some, when you stay away, you may not be able to express emotionally and to have that deep emotional connections. But I'm glad post my training, I have been able to really connect deeply with my children and hopefully with my grandchildren.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
But I really appreciate and my gratitude to my children. And of course, my husband for being understanding and supporting me in this busy management and teaching activities, because although I'm a vice chancellor, I'm a teacher full-time. I teach.
Oh, yes.
So I don't want to be a vice chancellor who sits in the office.
Yeah. So you're an active teacher, researcher, and an administrator. Yes. Yes.
So I really love connecting with the students.
Right.
and mentoring them.
Hmm.
And specifically, because my institution is a gender equitable institution. And right from the beginning, we started training the staff, training the students.
Good.
And therefore, awareness is high.
Good.
And really, my inspiration is to have a gender equitable community, both within and outside the institution.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been very interesting, very inspiring, and it's truly an honor to have you. And we are so happy about the change you're influencing, not only in your university, but in the Tanzanian academic community, especially when it comes to gender mainstreaming in the higher education sector. And hopefully this will spread beyond the country and be adopted by most institutions within the continent. Asante sana. Thank you so much for your time.
Asante sana, Joy. But if you allow me, I would
Yes.
like to end by thanking INASP,
Yes.
not only for the initial support, but inviting me as an INASP associate.
Oh,
and
yes.
Working together in various activities, and most importantly, in mentoring of early career research women.
They have been instrumental. Yeah, they've been instrumental in that for sure. All right.
Sure.
Okay then. Thank you, and do have a
Thank you
lovely
so
day.
very much, Joy, and stay well.
Okay, and enjoy the rest of the year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Joy. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Mazungumzo Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on all our channels for more updates and for candid stories by researchers, policymakers, higher education leaders, and innovators on their journeys. See you in our next episode.